Hello everybody, welcome to another Reactor stream. My name is Sarah, if you haven't seen me on one of these streams before, and today we're going to be talking about Azure Analytics. Oops, I have my other monitor open. And yeah, so I'm excited. Azure Analytics. So sorry you don't see my face. I have issues with bandwidth and I'm trying to ensure the best quality for you all now. So hopefully that will help with the issue. So today we're going to be talking about Azure Analytics. Now with Azure Analytics, there are a million and one things that you could jump into. For example, if we were to check out the basically if you were to search Azure Analytics, like there's all of these different products that you can explore. We did talk a little bit about Power BI yesterday, and each of these have like a number of other either products or services or whatnot that you might dive into even more. Today, though, I thought we would talk about Azure Stream Analytics. Basically, Azure Stream Analytics is a service that Azure offers that allows you to bring data in and take data out. So you can head over to this. Let me put the link in there. Stream Analytics. You can check out this. Oh gosh, it's not the same one. Sorry, one second. Here we go. You can just check out this page for additional information on it. But essentially, if you have some kind of data input, for example, you have some IoT devices or some kind of sensors, some kind of sensors, thermostats, etc. If you have a bunch of input data, it could also be data from an app that gets collected every night. And then gets uploaded into just a simple blob storage, or it could be data from like on a street, and it's like the data for how many cars are being passed, like essentially any kind of streams of data. It allows you to kind of bring that stream of data into the Azure ecosystem. It allows you to either write Azure functions or SQL queries on that data, and then basically move it into something else. Today, we're going to be talking about Azure Stream Analytics as it applies to IoT devices, so bringing in a constant stream of data from an IoT device, and then storing that both in an Azure Blob Storage, which then you could use it in other ways, and also visualizing it in Power BI. So that's what we're going to do today. So to get started, we're going to need a Power BI account. What I've done so far is create a workspace. I just called it August 25th stream. I don't have a pro account. This is just a basic Power BI account. I also have an Azure account with a pay-as-you-go subscription, and we'll create all of the resources we need. You can see I created some before. I just have those as backups, just in case this doesn't work. And then we're also going to be using this Raspberry Pi web simulator, which I have the URL for right here if you want to follow along. And this web simulator basically just allows us to try it out with a fake IoT device, a fake Raspberry Pi. So this Raspberry Pi basically just collects like temperature and humidity, like it collects weather data essentially. So all of this code is written on that link that I sent you already. So this is a kind of like all in the box simulator. And all we'll have to do is put in our IoT hub device connection stream here, which I will show you how to do today. Cool. So to get started, first let's get our IoT device set up. So, you know, basically what we have is we've got this desire to get data from this device that's collecting temperature into our into Azure, into the stream Azure Stream Analytics service. So then that way we can visualize it over in Power BI. So you could imagine this is useful. For example, for me, I've been talking about this for quite a while. My office tends to get really cold or really hot while I'm working, and I don't tend to realize it. So you could imagine if I just had like a couple of sensors that I could have just like some kind of screen or something showing, hey, it might be getting kind of hot. Maybe you should do something about it. I mean, you would think a thermostat is good enough, but we don't actually have a thermostat in this office. It doesn't have any kind of air or temperature control other than windows and heaters and fans. So it's very difficult for me to know until all of a sudden I'm way too hot or way too cold. So you can imagine that scenario. So I'm going to pretend like this is actually in my physical location, and I have this device, and I know that it collects temperature because that's what this piece does here, and I know that it can send data. So that's what I want to do. So first I'll head over into Azure, and I will create a resource, and I want to create an IoT hub. I'll click Create. Maybe I'll click Create. I'm going to try making sure that can be closed. I can have my chat open here. Okay. I don't know why you're not creating. Let me go back to new. IoT hub search. Create. Hello. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm going to do my pay-as-you-go subscription, and I'm going to create a new resource group called August 25 stream. Oh, I already have that one. Let's call it August 25. All right. This just makes it easier for me to delete everything later. Then I will, I'm going to choose West US because that's where I'm at, and a name for my hub. So we're going to call this Stream Aug 25. And we'll kind of use that as our naming convention here. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and create that. All of the defaults are fine. I'm going to delete it soon anyways, so it's all good. Okay, so while that's deploying, basically what this IoT hub does is it allows us to connect up IoT devices and then providing us with these connection strings that we can put into our code for our IoT devices. And then it allows us to then connect that up with other services like Azure Stream Analytics. So we're going to go ahead and create this. Shouldn't take too long. Have some tea while I'm waiting. I'm really excited. I really do want to set this up. I've got this huge box of IoT devices here. I really want to set it up with a physical device. I've not done that quite yet, so I'm excited for that. Oh, come on, deployment. Let's go. You can do it. It's been about 1 minute. Oh, I swear when I did this last time, it did not take as long. Maybe because I'm also now trying to stream and, well, that shouldn't really matter. Oh my goodness. Let's go. Come on, you can deploy. You can do it. Well, in the meantime, we can like let that keep going and we can create some of the other stuff, which is fine. So while that's getting deployed, we can always check on the progress up here. So, and it'll pop up when it's done. I can go back home and I can create another resource. Obviously, we're going to need our stream analytics resource. So let's go ahead and create that. And I'm going to open up stream analytics. So it's called the stream analytics job. Oh, look, there it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. It's not in an active state. Oh yeah, it's still transitioning. Okay, so like I said, we're going to need to connect up this device and we're going to need a connection string for that device. So in order to do that, we need to create a device. So over here, we will come down to IoT devices over on the left-hand panel under Explorers and let that load up. And then click on new here at the top and let's give this an ID. So we'll call this stream og25 device. And everything I'm just going to keep default. So we'll save that. So that was created, and so if we refresh here, we'll see it. If we click on it, this is where we will get our connection string. So we can go ahead and grab this connection string from here. I'm going to grab the primary connection string, head back over to our simulator, and I'm just going to replace this right here. Perfect. All right, so, oops, I don't need to save. Now I'm going to go ahead and run this and make sure that it's working. So when we run it, we should start to see things like this. So sending message 1, sending message 2, and it's just giving us the temperature and humidity. So it's sending messages continuously to our Azure IoT Hub. So I'm going to let that keep sending messages while we set everything else up. So we'll head back over here, go back home, create a new resource, and we'll call this, and this one is going to be our stream analytics job. We're going to click on create. So what we've done so far is we have this simulator that is our input data. It's a continuous stream of data, and all it is sending us a message that this device and what the temperature and humidity is. Cool. So now what we need to do is we need to actually gather that data from the IoT device. So we're going to call this stream og25 stream because it's the stream analytics, and then it's pay as you go, and we'll go ahead and do oops, not the 24th, 25th, and let's choose West US, just making sure everything is on the same one. And then I'm going to choose one streaming unit. So if you click on here, this is basically how many servers, how many computes you want to be available to process your query. So if you have a like a bunch of different devices or something that's going to be collecting a large amount of data and like lots of it and lots of calls, you might want to have multiple computes basically to ensure that you're getting all of those and that you have enough like processing power to deal with it. This is a very, very, very simple one, and you are essentially, for your stream analytics job service, you're essentially paying for that compute. So for this tutorial, we're going to do one and then delete it afterwards. So we'll click on create here. Cool. So that is deployed. So we can head over to our resource now. And this is where it gets pretty easy. So let's take a look at this first. Why is that too slow to deploy? You know, I think that Azure IoT Hub is slow to deploy mainly because it's setting up the ability to track a lot of different devices. In this case, we only wanted to track one device, but to be able to ensure that you're able to track, you know, I don't know, hundreds of devices, I think that's why it takes a bit longer. The stream analytics, for example, it's literally just kind of this interface between input and output, and so that's why it took a lot less to create. Also, we're only creating one compute, So yeah, I think that's why. But I'm not positive. Okay, so in our stream analytics job, there's a few things to note. So a lot of what you're going to need is just right here on the front page. You're going to have your inputs. So that's going to be our IoT devices. You're going to have your outputs. We're going to output to a blob storage and as well as Power BI. You're going to have your query. So basically what you want to take from your input and where you want to put it. I said that backwards, but what you want to take from your input and where you want to put it. And you can, this is SQL, so you can write any valid SQL queries in here. And then also our monitoring. So this is going to show us any kind of input and output that's happening, any kind of errors that are happening, as well as our resource utilization in case, you might want to increase the number of computes or something. So in kind of our overview page, we essentially have everything that we need. And it even kind of starts to guide us into what we want to do next. Over here, though, we also have some of the same types of things. So our inputs will also be listed here, and you can also create inputs from here. Our outputs would be listed here, and you can create outputs from here. And then again, we can have our query here, which is going to specify our inputs and outputs. And then you can also do functions. We're not going to do functions for this stream, but you can also do functions and do even more with your data before you move it into your output. So something to note, for our inputs, when you click on Add Stream Input, you can either be gathering it from an Event Hub, from IoT Hub, or a blob storage. Today we're going to do IoT Hub just because it's, for me, a little bit more interesting. We have this thing that's continuously providing us with data. Event hubs, you might have like specific events wherein it's going to do that, and blob storage is kind of like the data is already there. And maybe you upload the blob storage with new data, like, every night or something. But for the purposes of a 1-hour demo, I figured we'd jump into IoT Hub. Before we create that, for outputs, we also have a number of different outputs we can have. Again, Event Hub, a SQL database, a blob storage, Power BI, et cetera, et cetera. So let's go ahead and configure our input and make sure that that is doing something. So let's add in a stream input, and this is going to be from an IoT Hub. Let's call this stream input. And we're going to select an IoT Hub from our subscriptions, our pay-as-you-go. Let's grab the one that I just created, which is StreamOg25. That's why we have that naming convention. You can change the endpoint. We're going to do messaging. That's what is happening over here. We're sending messages, so we're going to keep that as messaging. And there's just like a number of other things that you can change. We don't really need to change much. If you want to like go into all of these other details, I encourage you to do that. All right, so we're going to save that. And the neat thing is that this is going to create the input, or like make a connection to the input, and it's going to test that connection to the input. So you can see that it was running a connection test, and it successfully connected. If you made some kind of change to your input or something like that, and you wanted to ensure that your input was still working, you can also test your input. You can click on here and click test, or over here you can click on this little test button, and it'll just basically run that connection test again. That's pretty cool. You can also throw it away and download some data too. So this is like sample data from your input. So it's not going to be like a continuous amount of your input, but like if you just wanted to download a little bit. So it'll get it for you. Cool. Notice we can have multiple inputs here, which is awesome. That's one of the things that Stream Analytics is good for. So let's say that you only wanted to have an output into Azure ML. or something. Sorry, not Azure ML. What was I thinking? Into like one Azure function, right? Then maybe you just go to the Azure function and you say like, this is where my input is. But the benefit of using something like Stream Analytics is that you can have multiple inputs. You could then query them and combine them and do whatever you want with them. You can gather only data from this input depending on the value of data from a different input, et cetera, et cetera. And then again, you can have the output in multiple places too. All right. So we'll head over to the overview. We'll see now that we've got this one stream input here. We'll see nothing is happening because we're not running anything or anything like that. If we clicked on this here, it just takes us back to our streams. And if we go to our query, we can start to see that now we do have this one input here. And if we wanted to, we can start to change this one. Oh, also, it's starting to gather that already. So the query page will start to we'll start to gather the data from there, even if it is something that is, even if you're not running it yet, because this is the area where we're kind of testing this. So we know that we want to grab from our stream input. And for now, we're just going to grab everything and we're just going to throw it into a blob storage. But yeah, and then we can see that that input alias went away because we are specifying which input we want now. Cool. So I'm going to save that for now, but we still don't have anywhere to put it. So again, over in outputs, there were a number of places that we could output our data to. For now, I want to output it to a blob storage, and I just want to grab all of my data and I want to put it into a blob storage. So then that way I just have like this backup of it and I can do something else with it later if I wanted to, do some analyses or something like that. So in order to do that, we need to head back home on our Azure portal and we need to create a new storage account. All right. We're going to attach it to our August 25th stream. And I'm going to name this stream Aug25. We'll call it output. West US, standard is fine. And we'll go ahead and create that. Storage accounts don't usually take too long to create, hopefully. Cool. Deployment is in progress. And cool. So it's making progress here. Cool. So now we can head over to this resource. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a container that will hold my output data. All right, so I'm going to click container. I'm going to choose output. And I don't need anyone else to have access to this. This is just for me, for my data that's coming into my Stream Analytics service. So I'm going to put it in there. I don't need to make any other changes either. So I'm going to click create. So now I've got this output folder. It's got nothing in it, completely empty. That's fine. All right, so now we're going to head back over into our Stream Analytics job service. And this time, instead of clicking over here, I'll show you if I just click right here and click output, and I'm going to choose blob storage. So in this case, I want to give it the stream output alias. Again, I'm going to select storage from my subscriptions, and this was stream aug25 output. I'm going to go ahead and use an existing container, the output, and because I want to organize my data according to like the date, So then that way I can start to predict when I should probably turn the heater on when I get into the office. I'm going to go ahead and do date here. And you can change the date format. I like year, month, day. That sounds good to me. But you could change that to a different one if you'd like. And let's see. I think we can, let's save it as a CSV file instead. For minimum rows, so this is essentially saying per batch that is sending to the output, are there a minimum number of rows that we want to require before we send the batch? And no, I don't have one. That's fine. Also, this one is maximum time, which is kind of the opposite. So let's say that you set your minimum number of rows to 100, but you don't get 100 rows to send to your output within like an hour, and you definitely want to have data update every hour. You could specify that. I don't have like a maximum time. Let's give it 1 minute. Just go ahead and keep sending the data. This is just an example. Okay, so now that's adding the output stream, and then so it kind of made that connection, and now it is testing that connection to ensure that we have access to that output stream. Node-RED. If Node-RED was able to run a nuclear power plant. I don't know what Node-RED is. I'm curious now. It was successful for stream output. And again, you could always run that again with this little button here. Okay. So now what we have so far is we have our input from our IoT hub, which is gathering these messages here. We're already at 439 messages sending. Into our IoT Hub Azure service. Then we also have a blob storage that we created, and that is our output. We do still need to fix our query here, so I'm going to click Edit, and I'm going to change this to Stream Output. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to do a test. So we can see our input preview here, and if we keep refreshing, we should get newer data. So that was temperature 31, humidity 32. Maybe not. I can't remember. But let's actually test this query before we start our service, because if we start our service and we need to make any changes, like any changes to our input or whatever, we will have to stop the service, and we don't want to have to do that if there's just a simple little mistake in our query or whatever. It worked though. So it grabbed all of the 50 preview inputs and it moved them over here. It didn't actually move them into our storage account yet. This is just testing the query, making sure that there's nothing wrong with it, and making sure that the data makes sense and all that. Cool. So I think we're pretty much ready to get it started. All we have to really do is push start. And when we push start, what's going to happen is a few things. So number one, we're going to start to see input and output events here. Hopefully no runtime errors. We're going to start to see how much of our resources this is using. And if we opened this up into a new tab and we went into our stream og25 output blob storage, we will start to see into our container and into our output folder, we should start to see something here. Right now there's no results. Cool. So let's go ahead and start that. And you can either start it now, or you can have a custom start time. I definitely want to start it now. So it is currently starting. We can see our status right here. We can also see in our notifications that it's starting. I did want to say, I wanted to give a shout out to Adam, who is a Microsoft MVP, and he has a bunch of really amazing Azure videos, and yeah, so I wanted to give a shout out to him because on my Azure Analytics journey, he's been a resource of mine. All right, so we're still trying to get through this now. Still starting our stream. If I recall correctly, Azure Stream Jobs in Azure Stream Analytics ensures that all data gets registered exactly once. And I'm trying to remember the sentence. Essentially, that there's no data loss. So all data will get registered exactly once because you don't want an event to be registered more than once because then that'll get really confusing. But it might like capture it more than once, if that makes sense. So it's going to ensure that you have exactly the right number. So I think that's why it takes a little bit of time to set things up, because we're trying to make sure that we're like reading in from streams effectively and all of that. But it's running now. Node-RED is a visual graph based automation system that you can use with Raspberry Pi. Very cool. So our job is running. You can set up some alerts and do some metrics. We're not going to do that right now. But what we will do is come down here and hopefully we'll start to see things happening. Maybe. So we do have all of that. We're grabbing into our output. Should start to see things. Let's make sure our simulator is still going. Yep, 584. I think it takes like a minute or two to... There it goes. Here we are. Oh, remember also we have like the minute cap, but so we've had 58 input and output streams or events so far. And so if we head over here and we refresh our output folder, we should see 2020, August 25th, and we should see this blob here. Right now it's 11 kilobytes. And if we look over here, we can see that we're getting more data in. And if we start to refresh this, now it's 12.63 kilobytes. So we can see that this blob is growing, which is what we would expect it to do. It's the same date, so we want that same blob storage to just keep growing. And then the next day we'll just have a new folder under 8, that's 26, and then that one will keep growing. But we can see now it's at 13.9. So this is growing. Great. We've got our data. It exists. We can download our data and check it out. And oops. Oh gosh, I hate when I accidentally click Unity. I need to unpin it from the taskbar. Okay. We can grab that and then you're not going to be able to see anything quite yet, but let me change this to Excel. Cool. So you can see over here, this is the Excel doc that just got downloaded. It's got our temperature, our humidity, the time, the partition ID, and all of this stuff. Event enqueued UTC time. Event processed UTC time. So yeah, so we've got our data. This is the last few, so 619 through 510. That's because we started it at around message 510, and by the time we downloaded it, it was at 619. And again, over here, we can continue to monitor all of our progress. It looks like it's like not updating, but we'll get there. Okay. So that's the basics of it. I mean, that's really like already a lot, right? You're able to have this device as long as you've got the code that connects this device to IoT Hub, which is not what we're talking about today, but you know, a piece of it. You can bring that data in. You can basically save that data to a blob. But let's do something slightly more interesting. Again, you can have multiple outputs because we might want to save all of this data to the blob, but in addition to that, we might want to also visualize the data. So I might want to have all of the data as a backup and also visualize it. And I don't want to create another stream analytics job with the exact same input and just a different output. That seems really silly. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a Power BI output. So we're going to go into outputs again. Oh, sorry. First, we need to stop it. Remember, I told you we have to stop if we are, if we need to make any changes to our input and output. So we have to stop it. We can do this one last 13.9 kilobytes, 24. Cool. So it is currently stopping. Awesome. Okay, cool. That is stopped now. So now we can head over into outputs. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a Power BI output. We'll need to authorize so that Power BI and our Azure Stream Analytics can communicate back and forth. So I'm going to authorize here. The neat thing is that when I created a different Stream Analytics job, I did have to authorize over there as well. So it does require you to authorize every single time, which on one hand might feel annoying, but on the other hand is great because if you wanted to create access to Power BI on one resource, you're not necessarily giving every single Azure resource access to it. That may seem silly if you're just using Azure alone, but oftentimes we're using Azure on large teams. I'm just in the background, there's a pop-up that's having me log in. And so, yeah, when you're using Azure on large teams, you might give specific access, for example, using this access control to different resources to various people on the team. So you don't want everyone to be able to do all of it. So output alias, let's call this stream output BI. And I'm going to choose my August 25th stream. Let's make sure that's so that's the workspace that I want. The data set name, I'm going to call this IoT data. And the table, let's just gather temperature for now. So I'm going to call this temp. We can do user token. So this is permanent access. This is this output on this service or this resource, permanent output, permanent access. So you'd have to delete the output or the job, the Stream Analytics job, in order to get rid of it. You could do a managed identity, but we're not. This is just much easier for our demo. And I'm going to delete it afterwards, so it's fine. Again, it's going to create it, and then it's going to test it and make sure that we have a good connection to our Power BI workspace. Great. Successful connection. Now over here, we're going to create a new dashboard. And this dashboard name is going to be IoT Dash. And from here, while that's okay, it's working. Yeah, you're working. We can add in a tile. And actually, I think we need to run it first, just to make sure. Yeah, okay. So we actually need to run it first. That makes sense. So let's, to test it. So let's update our query, because right now our query isn't actually touching the stream output BI. Yes, Azure Functions can be used as an output. So we're going to create another query. And this time, so we're still going to go from stream input. This time we're going to go to stream output BI. And this time, instead of selecting everything, I think it would be good to select like the average temperature across like a certain time frame. So we can grab average temperature, and we'll save that as temperature. Anyone else really need to like spell that out? Now we have an error here because this must have an over clause, because this is average temperature. If it's just one query, then that's one value. And so can I mention one function that I would like as an output? Yeah, let me finish this thought first. And this is kind of, this is like a little bit of a query, but sorry, I totally got distracted. So since this is an aggregate function, if we only had one temperature value on one query, we obviously can't get an average. I mean, the average would be that value. So we need to do it over a certain amount of time. So we need to have a select statement with a group by. So let's go ahead and group by, and we're going to do 2 seconds. What might also be useful, because remember, I would like to know like the date and time. So I come into my office at different times every day, different days throughout the week, different weeks throughout the year. So it would be great if I could visualize that in some way and just kind of have that information right in front of me. So let's also go ahead and grab the timestamp. And so that's going to be window end. So that's like the window for which we're grabbing the average temperature. Okay. So this is our query right here. So we're going to grab the time, and then we'll know that for the previous 2 seconds, we grabbed the average temperature. We're grabbing that from stream input and putting it into stream output BI. If we highlight this, we can test just that selected query. So we can see here, it was able to grab from that point and 2 seconds before. This is the average temperature. So let's go ahead and save this query. So one functions that we would like as an output. So the Azure function itself isn't the output. It is the output connection for which we're going to grab the data and put it into that, right? So our data is the output, right? Just like here, our outputs are the connections to something else, right? So in one case, our output was this. This is our output, like location, destination. That might be a better word for it. It's our destination for our output, right? So our one destination for our output was this blob storage. Another destination for our output is going to be this dashboard. The output itself is what the query is here. There is also a way of doing the functions bits. I haven't gone into that, so we're not going to cover that on this stream. But so when we're thinking about outputs to that effect, when you come in here and you say that I want to have an Azure function as an output, that is your destination for where your data is going to. So depending on your data, if this was the temperature data, I don't know, you would have some kind of Azure function that would want to know temperature data over the last however many minutes and then do something as a result of that. In this case, I don't want to do anything else. I just want to know, which is why we're doing Power BI, because I just want to know this information. All right, so now over here, we see that we've got one input. It's the IoT Hub stream input. Let's make sure that that's still running. 9:55, 9:56, you look good. Then we have two outputs. One is blob storage and one is output BI. We can see that, oh, there we go. Now it's showing up a little bit. So we've had 184 input and output events. And we've got our two queries here. So we're still going to save everything into our blob storage. And remember, our blob storage was 24 kilobytes. And then we're also going to output, oops, I did not mean to do that. We're also going to output to our Power BI and only the average temperature over the last few seconds. So let's go ahead and start this. One neat thing is if you've made some kind of change, you can either just say like, just grab it now, or you can grab when it was last stopped. So that would be if you couldn't, like if you were like, I cannot lose any data, then you can grab when it was last stopped, and it'll grab all of that data that we missed over the last 5 or so minutes, and get that for you. Yes, this video will be available later. It'll be on Friday, and we also always link our videos on our GitHub repo. So if you head here, you can find some resources, and I'll link the video there afterwards as well. All right, so let's go ahead and start this. Sorry, I should have started that before I... okay, I'm just going to take a minute or two. Starting. Still starting. Come on, you can do it. Once that has started, what we're going to want to do is over here in our dashboard, we're going to want to create a new tile, and it's going to be custom streaming data. And we're going to grab our streaming data set from here once we have it. So remember, this is going to create that data set. So remember when we did do this, we can see it over here in a second. We said that we wanted our data set name to be IoT data. So we'll be able to grab that data over in our Power BI dashboard. Come on, you can do it. So close. There we go. Okay, so now we're running. So all we've done with our output is, again, we're going to be putting this data into this data set. And Power BI, if you saw yesterday, we were able to grab data from a blob storage. So you could have just grabbed the data from the blob storage, but this allows us to do it with a streaming data tile. So we're going to grab custom streaming data. We should have, there's our IoT dash. Yes, you. Okay, so now I'm confirmed that it's here. Let me go back, sorry. Yes, so the Twitch Microsoft developer channel, if that's what you're talking about, is a shared channel across a lot of different folks. Great, so now we can see our data sets here. We can grab that. And we can just visualize a card, and let's go ahead and just add the temperature value. That's all we're kind of grabbing right now. Let's click next, apply. Look at that. Cool. This is just going to update my temperature every time I get new updates. So every single time we get an output, which is going to be the average temperature of the last couple seconds, it's going to come out here. Cool. The CSV file is... I don't have a CSV file, so it's just the simulator. Let me grab that. Coming from this simulator. I am a Microsoft employee, a shared account. Cool. Getting the current temperature, or the, is great, but we can also add in another tile from our stream data. But in this case, maybe we want to see a line chart, and maybe we want this to be across time, and we want the temperature. Cool. So now we've got this nifty little IoT dashboard. And if you saw, there were some pop-ups, I just kind of dismissed them, but you could have like a phone view. So you could maybe have like a tablet that's showing this, or you can have, like I said, like a display that's just kind of like running this and showing you the current temperature of your home. You can imagine that instead of having an IoT device that's gathering temperature in like the current room that you're in, you could also have like temperature and water, like dampness of your soil in your garden or something like that, and et cetera, et cetera. My husband loves to deal with his fish tank. He's got this huge fish tank, and he's got all these sensors that monitor water and nutrients and stuff like that. So you could imagine that he has that. It's just kind of showing him, and you could set up alerts and all that good stuff. So yeah. So that was the basics. Basically all we did was create an IoT hub. We connected up our IoT device to that hub. We created a stream analytics job and said that we wanted that IoT hub to be our input. Then we created a blob storage, which by the way is still growing. Here we go. So we did stop it and start again. So that's why we got a new file. But so now we've got a new file that is still growing. So that one was at 24. This one's at 22 already. So we have this blob storage that is just storing all of our data. We also have an output for Power BI that's showing our current temperature, average temperature over the last 2 seconds, as well as just this line chart of our temperature every minute. So there you go. So pretty straightforward. I do have some resources for you that I wanted to share. Number one is, again, we do have all of our resources available on our GitHub repo. So actually, let me just go ahead and show that again real quick. So if you head over to that AKA link, which, again, I'll paste it back in the chat, and it will also be in the description. But that AKA link there, it has, it'll send you straight to, sorry, it doesn't send you to here. It sends you straight to here, which if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see, oh, wow, something got messed up there. That's what happens when you try to make changes without testing them first. There we go. Cool. So let me go ahead and refresh this. I did link here a Learn module, Microsoft Learn module, which will walk you through the basics of Azure Stream Analytics, as well as doing an input and output from blob storage. I also linked Adam's video, which I found extremely, extremely helpful. In addition to that, we also have a survey that we would love. I just realized I wasn't actually showing this. Sorry. This is where that AKA link will take you. Sorry about that. And this is the Learn module. And we also have a survey that we would be very grateful if you would take. It's at aka.ms/reactor/survey. And my code for today is 7854. Taking this survey just ensures that we're bringing you content that you care about. So please make sure that you check it out and give us some feedback. And then, like I mentioned, all of our videos, all of our streams, and so much more, we post on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Microsoft Reactor. The video from today and yesterday will be posted by Friday, and I encourage you to check that out. So thank you everyone for joining me. I know that I have a bit of a delay from when I'm talking to when you're hearing me. So I'm going to stop it now because I think it'll it'll kind of go through. But thank you so much for joining me again today. And yeah, good luck on your Azure Analytics journey. Have a good day or evening wherever you may be in the world. Goodbye.